Welcome to That Digital Take. I'm your host, Tori Webster. Hi, welcome back to the pod. Very excited today. I'm coming in hot. I have much better energy than I did yesterday. I turned 28 years old on Monday and had what I would like to call the post-birthday blues yesterday. I was just not feeling life. I said, I've done nothing in 28 years. I have no faith in myself. Where am I heading in this life? And then I had a good night's sleep, and then I woke up today and I was like, I am talented. I am the future. So I really like that life is filled with duality like that. You have days of just no faith at all, and then days of feeling like you can take on the world. So really excited to be coming to you today with a full birthday recap. So I think I've told some brief journeys about Torchella on the pod, but I'll give you the full rundown. So every year, I have a Torchella birthday. It's a theme. It was founded 7 years ago. My boyfriend and my best friend came up with Torchella for a few different reasons. And if you listen to the burnout episode, I think that's where I touched on it a little bit, because basically what went down is 8 years ago, I had a birthday party where I integrated a brand and I spread myself way too thin, and I actually lost myself and spent my whole birthday crying and had no fun at all. So then the next year, my boyfriend and best friend said, we're done with this. You're a workaholic. You need to go offline. And so they surprised me with this really beautiful, intimate cottage weekend with just me and my closest friends. We hung out by the lake. We were totally offline, and we just took a beat for a couple of days and had the most amazing celebratory Torchella time. And it's themed, obviously, Torchella because of my love for Coachella, and then lined up with my Leo birthday energy, hence Torchella. So yeah, 7 years ago, we had the first founded year. Then every year since then, we've gotten bigger, better, more fabulous. So what was once a journey of me trying to go offline and enjoy my birthday and not be a workaholic has since kind of reverted back to where I began, which is integrating brands, making it something too big, and going absolutely buck wild. So yeah, maybe next year I do need to pull back a bit, but this year I had the most fabulous time. So let me give you the recap. So we did Charleston this year. The last 3 years we've taken it international. We've gone to the US. So we did Nashville 3 years ago for my birthday. We did Miami last year, which we spent so much budget at the strip club last year. So then this year we were like, we have to pull back budget wise. And I wanted something a bit more low key, something less strip club, more white wine and oyster. So we chose the beautiful North Carolina, Charleston, and it was so stunning. We had the best time. I didn't know what to expect from Charleston. So to give you some background on why we choose these locations, because people often wonder how we end up in these random hotspots around the US. Soho House, which again, I think I've discussed on the pod, which is like a creative house if you're a member across the US and Canada and Europe. Like they have them all over the world. You can go to the hotels and stay, and you kind of get discounted rates, but it's these really aesthetic hotels, and you're a member. So you get access to the gym, the pool, like all that good stuff. So Soho House had done an announcement 6 months ago saying, oh, we're opening in Charleston. And so I thought at the time, I'm like, okay, this is a perfect excuse to do a beautiful Carolina birthday and go to Soho House and see the new Charleston house. Turns out after we book our flights and get all jazzed up about heading to Charleston, Soho House was not in fact open yet. Like they have not opened the house. So then we were in a bit of a rock and a hard place because we had booked Charleston, but we didn't have then somewhere to stay. So we did some deep dives. We ended up finding a really beautiful hotel called The Pinch, and it was so cute, so quaint. Highly recommend if you're going to Charleston. It was such a lovely hotel. And yeah, so we got locked and loaded to a hotel there. And then our itinerary was a complete reverse from last year. Sorry. So last year was like strip club, like drink, dinner, like chaos. And there was so many more people last year. I think there was a group of like 15 of us, which is just hard to wrangle. That I've learned. Wrangling that many people for a weekend of itinerary is just tough. This year was much more intimate. It was just 6 of my girlfriends. We left the boyfriends at home. We said, bye-bye, girls trip. And it was amazing. We did a boat day. We did, some wine tastings. We just did oysters. We did all these really cute, we did a horse-drawn carriage through the old town. Super cute. So boat day. Boat day is always my favorite day. That stems from my obsession with Revolve trips because we always have epic boat days on Revolve trips. Now, Revolve budget versus our budget on Torcella is obviously very different. Like, we don't charter a yacht, but we did get a really cute boat, and our captain was so, so cute. But he also was bad because we were, I think, scheduled to be on the water for 3 hours. And then it turned into like 6 hours. And this man bamboozled us. He swindled us because he got us drunk. And then he's like, okay, you can pay for an extra hour. But now we're like chilling in the middle of the water, having the best time. We like made all these friends on the water. Obviously, our boat was the party boat. We had the music going. Taylor Swift was singing. Of course, we started adding hours. So then it was just like, oh, you can pay for another hour. Oh, you can pay for another hour. So we did. So we stayed a couple extra hours. But whatever. That was like the big day. So we leaned into it. And we had the budget because we weren't doing a strip club this year. That's a story for another day, but whatever. So yeah, so it was super fun boat day. And I just wanted to enjoy these moments. And I feel like this is my whole shtick because I kind of go balls to the walls like January to August, and I like grind and I work so hard. And I feel like then by my birthday, I don't feel bad about spending money on things to just indulge. Like, that's not in my typical personality. Like, I definitely like buy things when I want to buy things, and I treat myself and all that good stuff. But like, I don't always spend the money on the super expensive hotel room or like the suite. I don't always like want to pay for the boat day or any of those things. But I feel like by the time Torcella runs around, I'm like, okay, we got to like set aside some birthday budget. Maybe it's the Leo in me. Maybe it's just I've worked hard for the first quarters of the year and I'm just like done. So yeah, I just wanted to take some offline time, enjoy my girlfriends, and we just had the best Torcella. So yeah, that was a bit about Charleston. I will say it was super hot, like 105 degrees every single day, like sweating our balls off. But I guess good for a hangover because it was like we'd cleanse it out of our system as quickly as possible and then get back on the horse. So yeah, then I had my actual birthday on Monday. So we got back Sunday evening. Sunday was just like such a write-off. Like, we flew home on a morning flight, and the girls, we had this joke because we were in the group chat on the way home, and everyone's like, okay, like McDonald's order, obviously. Like, I just wanted to sit on the couch, watch Suits, be hungover, like do nothing at all. And my boyfriend was away at a bachelor party because, as you guys know, we now live together. There's nothing better than coming home to like an empty house, I've realized. So like, that was really nice. He wasn't around. And then my McDonald's order was so insane. So I need to put you on this. I had a McChicken, and then it was a BOGO. Like, it was a BOGO deal. So then I actually had 2 McChickens. Like, I love McDonald's. They're just like, you don't need one, you need 2. But then I was like, I love chicken, but I also just wanted a burger. So then I was like, okay, I typically would be a Big Mac girl, but since I was having all of these extra things, I like pulled back. So I did a double cheeseburger, and then I did 6 chicken nuggets, and then medium fry. And then normally I'd get a Coca-Cola, but I was so hungover in the morning that I had to have that on the flight home. So then I opted for the iced tea just for survival. So yeah, that was amazing. That was like leading into my birthday, and then woke up on my birthday feeling less hungover, which was amazing. And I was like, yay, 28, but also like a little bit of birthday blues because like such a big weekend. But then I had a little bit of fun that day because Earls, the new King West Earls, they were kind enough to like host all my friends and I on the patio on Monday night. So that was really fun. I had 20 friends and family come by. It was so cute, but also still like intimate enough that I got to hang out with everyone. And we did like seafood towers and champagne and all the good stuff. So yeah, it's a wonder that I was depressed yesterday. Now that actually gives a lot more context. Like, after all the McDonald's, all the champagne, Dom Perignon for no reason, as Drake will say. Yeah, so I was feeling like shit yesterday, but we're back, baby. And the hangover has left my system, and I am here to give you a good show today. So that brings us into our topic of the week, which is I want to run you through what I believe is start to finish running a successful influencer campaign. Now, I want to chat about this because I feel like this goes back to what we chat about a lot. Like, I think there's a misunderstanding or a misconception of what people think the role of influencer encompasses. And part of that is how to run a successful brand campaign when you're actually working with these top tier global brands. So I want to walk you through kind of step by step what that looks like, whether you want to think of it as someone that like wants to work with a brand in the future, or if you're a brand listening and you're thinking, what's the best way for me to approach an influencer, work with an influencer? Like, how should this back and forth go? What is the actual experience? And these are kind of the step by step things that I think are best case scenario. So number one, we have outreach from a brand. Now, outreach can mean a few different things. There's a version of outreach where it's just a brand connecting with you to kind of gauge interest. This could be, hey, Tori, we might want to work with you. We like your vibe. Could you send us your media your media kit and your rates, and we'll keep these on file for when we have brands, on our roster come out with some ideas that they might want to work with you. So that's version one, like a very casual version of outreach. They're not coming to you with like a specific campaign, but they're just saying, hey, we want to be on your radar. Can we just like create a bit of a back and forth on email so that we're connected? There's another version of outreach, which is when brands will come to you with a very specific ask or task and say, hey, we have this amazing brand campaign in mind. Here's a little bit about that brand campaign. We'd love to see if we could work with you on this campaign. Then there's another version of outreach, which I would call the pitch, which is the reverse. It's when you go to the brand and you say, hi, brand, I have an amazing idea of how we can work together. Let's use Torchella as an example, because that's the theme of today's episode. Let's pitch to, let's just say Dom Perignon, because I can manifest this for the future. So let's say I go to Dom and I say, hey, Moet and Hennessy brands, I want to work with you guys to activate for my birthday. And I put together this very formal pitch of how we could work together. So I'll say, I'd like to offer, a dedicated reel and organic story coverage throughout the whole weekend of Torchella, capturing the fun of Torchella, but also integrating the amazing luxury that is Moet Hennessy brands and Dom Perignon. So that could be like a version of a pitch to a brand. Depending my relationship with a brand, I could say, hey, like this is the budget that I think makes sense. Or it could just be organic. Like I could be like, hey, you have to pay X amount of dollars for this coverage. Or it could just be, hey, could you gift X amount of bottles of Moet and Dom for my birthday? So that's like an example of like a pitch, right? So there we go. So there's the outreach portion. Is it me reaching out to the brand? Is it the brand reaching out to me? That's step one. We're in the email now. This is the other thing. Like 99% of work in the influencer space is genuinely just happening on email. So we're just going back and forth. All right. Then we head into the briefing stage. So chatting about the brief. So let's just use the brand reaching out to me as the example for today, because it'll be easier for everyone to follow. So once a brand has reached out to me, they might say, okay, now we have this brief. How do you feel about this brief? How do you feel about this creative? I personally love when brands come to me in the early stages of briefing and ideation, because it allows me to come at it from a much more organic perspective. So I'll use one of my favorite brands as an example. So I use Fresh skincare like every single day in my life, soy face cleanser, day and night to clean my face, all of that good stuff. So maybe Fresh would come to me and say, hey, we have this like kind of idea because we have this new product launching in this collection, but we know you're like a huge brand hero for soy face cleanser and all these other things. What is the best way that we could work together on this new launch? That's one way that it could work, right? They come with me with this looser brief. They say, we want you to kind of come in on it from a creative angle, and we really want you to shine through. There's another version of this, and this happens where brands just want key messaging regurgitated. And this is kind of where people have a negative scope on influencer marketing, because I believe every creator is going to say the best integrations happen when they're super organic, you're naturally in love with the product, and it just is like A1. But there's a version of influencer marketing, and especially for video content, and especially when it's going to be boosted. So like that's when they put more ad dollars behind it so it reaches a larger audience, where brands just want their key messaging heard, and they want it a very specific way, and they want it regurgitated from what we're talking about, which is the brief. So again, there's two different ways to look at it. There's the very organic, like early ideation process where brands will come, with open arms to say, hey, give us creative ideas. Or there's the other version where brands will say, here is what we're working with, and we really want you to stay within the parameters of this brief. Both are okay, just a different approach. Okay, so then that's step 2. Then we head into the next stage, which is aligning on deliverables. Now, again, this is going to be different for every single brand outreach. Sometimes brands will come to you, again, with a very specific ask. Hey, we want one TikTok, maybe reshared on Reels, and that's it. Great, okay. Then you'll scope out a budget for that. Or there's a version where they say, we're not sure yet. We're kind of looking for a package. Like, could you give us some stories with the TikTok, maybe reshared on Reels? Maybe you have in YouTube Shorts as well, and you could reshare it on YouTube Shorts. So again, it's going to be different no matter what, but that's also a point of negotiation, right? So that's when you're going back on email saying, all right, let's align on deliverables. And deliverables, of course, always come and play with budget. So then you're kind of going back and forth, figuring out what rate makes the most sense for what package. And usually you'll have flexibility. So if you're creating a package deal, you'll say, okay, I'll give you a little bit of a discounted rate because you're going to get a bit more content out of it, a bit more budget out of it. And you'll go back and forth to align on those final deliverables and the final rate that you'll be paid for that campaign. Now, that's where a bit of the negotiation can take a while. And I think that's a bit misunderstood about the industry as well. I think that sometimes when you're the consumer and you see that final video and that final product, you think that it's happened probably pretty quickly. There has been cases where I've been in those 3 stages, outreach and the back and forth of deliverables and rates, for what can feel like months, and sometimes is actually months, because if it's really corporate brands, they have to go through so many stages of approvals. They have to make sure that there's alignment on all things. So yeah, it can actually be a pretty lengthy process. So that's just something to keep in mind. Like, if you're just in the beginning stages and you're doing this kind of back and forth with brands, or if you're the brand, like, yeah, there's no judgment. Like, sometimes this is just a bit of a long process. So that's something just for everyone to be aware of. Then we head into the formal contract negotiations. So you have your rates, you have your deliverables, you know sort of what the creative is going to be looking like. And now it's about all of the red lines of the contract. So whether that's like usage or, literally all of the boring legal stuff, like, you kind of have to go back and forth and make sure you're in full alignment on what is usually a 7 to 11 page contract. And that, again, is back and forth on email, whether you're working with lawyers or whether you're doing it yourself, and formalizing what that final contract is going to look like with the brand. Then we head over to the more creative part. So this is the briefing alignment. So back at the beginning, you were kind of pitched a brief or pitched an idea, but now this is where you really flesh it out. This is where the creator will write out very formal creative. So sometimes that can mean storyboarding. Sometimes that can mean just writing scripting. And again, like, certain brands want different things. Like, there's brands that trust me fully and they won't ask for a script. They just say, we love your work. We know we trust you. You have the brief. You have the key messaging. Go do your thing. But there's other brands that are like, no, we kind of want to make sure that, like, your personality is shining through, but we still want to make sure that that key messaging is being heard. Can you kind of storyboard that out for us? Can you give us a full kind of sample script, of what this video might look like? This is especially true when it comes to longer form video, TikTok, Instagram Reels, things like that. And again, this is like a newer way of working, because it used to obviously be like a very heavy photo creating process. Like, I used to almost only create photos. So I'd say in the last 5 years is when we've really gone deeper into this concepting part, because what you're really ultimately trying to avoid is a reshoot, right? Like, that is like the worst possible thing that could happen. Imagine you've gone through all these stages of working with a brand. You get through the concepting phase, you get through the scripting phase, you head into production, but then you're really trying to avoid that reshoot. The last thing you want to do is end up sending in content and them saying, you know what, we don't love this, we need you to reshoot it. And this is my famous line, but brands do not know what they want until they see what they don't want, which can be really frustrating when you're the person creating the content. So that's why this phase is super important. Write out your ideas, storyboard, make it as clean and clear as possible about what you are going to deliver them. And another hot tip there is, if you have sample content from other brands or just organic content that you think really aligns with what they're looking for, sending those examples in advance can be really helpful. And they can say it's a this or that. Like, hey, here's a vlog style video, or here's like a me chatting to camera video, and they can say, we like version 1. It just makes everything really clear. Okay. So once you get the green light from the client, when it comes to all of the concepting and all of the scripting, then and only then do you head into production. Like, you can see how this is like a pretty long-winded process, right? Like, you're only then going like, okay, I'm going to go actually film this content at this point. So that's when like I take it away. I go offline. Finally, I leave the email portion. I say, okay, it's my time to shine. And I go into I go into filming. So I film everything, whether that's iPhone filming, whether that's filming with a DSLR, maybe it's a combination of both. Maybe I have to shoot some BTS stuff. Maybe I have to shoot some stuff in natural daylight or in different light. So like usually that could be like an afternoon or a day's worth of work, just the filming content. Only then do I then go into post-production. So once I actually have the content that's been shot, I can go into post-production. Now, I've talked about this a little bit before, but like this is my least favorite part of the job. I think like everyone has a different perspective on this. I know creators that love the post-production, and I also know creators that actually don't do it themselves, which is totally normal as well. Like you would outsource this part and you would actually just have an editor. And I have an editor for certain long form work, which I use her for because it's just like too much scope for me. But like for the most part, if it's just me like shooting a TikTok, like I'm editing it myself. So then you're doing your edit, you're doing all of the music, you're doing the text overlay, you're finalizing the flow of what that final branded piece of content is gonna look like. Once the edit is finalized, once the music is done, once everything is perfect, then it's uploading it to a drive, WeTransfer, whatever works for your workflow, and sending that off to the client along with copy and or caption, depending on how you like to describe it. Your copy and your caption has to be sent along with it. So it's kind of the moment where you're wrapping it all up in a pretty bow. You're saying, here is my reel, here is my caption, let me know feedback. Then you might head into a round of edits or amendments or changes. And this is where I was chatting about avoiding reshoots. So my hope is always that a brand will come back and say, best case scenario, go live. We love it. You're a shining star. Fabulous. There's another version of it where it's just really simple feedback like, hey, some of this caption needs reworking, and do you mind changing the font on the copy? Like on the video copy. That's easy peasy, like, click and plug and play, make the changes. That's like best case scenario. And I've done this now for obviously 10 years. So there was like times for sure at the beginning where I felt a lot more growing pains and I had to do a lot more reshoots and kind of figuring out what that looked like for brands and because it's really frustrating, like where was my flexibility? Like sometimes it's really normal for creators to ask for an additional fee for a reshoot, so don't be afraid to do that. But I think also there's the other side of it, which is if you give a brand flexibility and if you give a brand content that they're happy with, the idea is to create repeat clients, right? So the last thing you want to do is piss off a brand, say, hey, you have to pay me again for another reshoot. And they're saying, okay, but we didn't like the content in the first place. So that's why that early stage of alignment, early stage of brief alignment, early stage of creative alignment is honestly paramount, because if you misalign there, it's only going to trickle into these other issues, like trickle into the editing stage, trickle into the reshoot stage. So you just have to be really careful. Now, let's say they come back, they say, Tori, we love your work, go live. Amazing. That stage means I finally get to do the upload. I get to go to Instagram or TikTok, make sure that my copy and my caption is all perfect, make sure that all of the like ad toggles are turned on, make sure the music is correct, make sure all of the tracking on the because okay, so this is such an aside, but if you're getting a brand usage, you have to like turn on basically all of these back end analytics so that the brand has the ability not only to like put budget behind it and boost it on these platforms, but it also gives them insights into your numbers so they can actually see how the video is performing. Now, if they don't put boosting behind a video, then this is the stage where once the content is live, you're obviously doing community engagement, you're commenting back to your followers, you're doing all that good stuff. Then it's like insights and a wrap-up report if they're not putting paid behind it and they get access to it on their own. So that would mean a nice little wrap-up report of you taking screenshots and or putting together a little portfolio of what the final campaign looked like, where were some wins. I think it's also really important to give feedback like, hey, where could we have done better here? What could we do better next time around? What worked? Like, what was like was the hook really good? Like, was the community engagement and the comments really positive? Like any of those really exciting things that a brand would love to see, include that in your wrap-up report and send that over. Then and only then you can head into invoicing. So you can actually send your invoice to the brand and say, I loved working with you. Thank you so much. It's time for payment. And here's the thing about payment I believe all creative industries, but like very specific to the influencer industry is it is really normal for payment terms to be 60 days, 90 days. Like it is really slow to get payment in this industry. And I've heard this from other creators in the past. Like it's a bit messed up because you think about people on a typical payment term, like they're getting paid every 2 weeks essentially for work that they're doing. Whereas in our industry, like you really have to be strategic with your finances. And again, this is a whole other episode, but just giving you a little insight is you do have to be strategic because there are moments where, yeah, you might be working on like 5 campaigns, but you may not see any of that money for months down the line, right? So you just have to be a little bit more thoughtful and strategic about running your business and understanding like the ins and outs of what's coming obviously into the bank and what's going out of the bank. So just something to keep in mind. All right. So I hope that this gives you more insight into, a true guide of what a campaign would look like in the influencer world. And like I said, each campaign is genuinely so unique. Some require more attention than others. Sometimes I work with brands where it's literally as easy as a quick back and forth on email and it's locked and loaded. Content is live within a week. And then there's other times where it's months on end and it's super drawn out and it's a long-winded process. So anyways, just something for you to keep in mind. I'm losing my... I've lost my in-ear, but that's okay. I don't even need it because I'm so on it today that I didn't even need help. I just did it all on my own. So that was today's episode and I love you. Thank you for tuning in. I will see you at the next episode. Love you, mean it. Bye-bye.